guys, welcome back to the Synapse Pod. I have a very special friend with me today. His name is Puru Rastogi. He is my very old friend and he is a brilliant founder of this company called Mowito. It's a robotics company. They have innovated massively in the field of AI, robotics, automation, and they help the dark stores, which are essentially like your Dunzos of the world or Zeptos of the world, and help in warehouse management. So they're creating a lot of AI models for warehousing as well. So I and Puru go way back to our before the college days, where we used to study together for competitive exams, and we were we were kind enough to keep in touch all these years and make our own respective startups. So Puru, lovely to have you here, man.
Hey man, nice to be here.
Thank you so much, Guru. And I've been so I did a little research about your journey, and I came to know that you went to Carnegie Mellon in 2015 and 2016, and the journey from there has been absolutely brilliant. So, so I would have love to deep dive into that, and I also got to know that you're a sports fellow. Uh,
Yeah.
so how did that go? Where did all this begin?
Sure. So, Chirag, before I went to Carnegie Mellon, there's a little bit story to that as well. So, I wanted to be in the robotics since my middle school time, since I was in third, fourth standard, because I watched this movie of Robbie Williams called Flubber. There, they had a yellow colored robot called Vivo, which was like an assistant to a mad scientist. And that's when I was like, yeah, as a robot, apne paas bhi hona chahiye. Something which talks to you every day and keeps a note of you, and something like what Siri and Cortana does, but with a hardware around it, right? And that's what got me into the robotics, the social aspect of it. I went to the college undergrad, and all through that, I was like, I need to get into the robotics, and eventually I got to know that Carnegie is one of the best institutes at the moment for the robotics engineering. And undergrad did not learn anything about specific about robotics. Right? I was in the mechanical department, majorly hardware. So when I went to Carnegie Mellon, the whole Pandora box opened for me. I realized that there are robots in the industry, factories, warehouses, everywhere, right? Like in the homes, in the hospitals. And one of the very interesting things which happened with me that an opportunity opened for me. There was a company called Clean Robotics, which was a startup, like super early stage, right? And they were making robotic trash cans. This was the first semester. Everybody was scared about getting internships, right? This guy was like, "Hey, I'm doing that startup. Would you like to, just come and brainstorm with me while your semester is going on?" And they told me that they're making a robotic trash can which you can put in your office, put your trash into it. It figures out whether it's recyclable or landfill and puts it into the right chamber. Let's say it's a plastic chamber, paper in the paper chamber, landfill and landfill chamber. Got to know about it, and I joined them, and then they later told me that, bro, we got into this awesome accelerator called Hacks, and for that we are going to Shenzhen, China. Would you like to join? This was my first semester in Carnegie Mellon, first institute outside India, right? And suddenly I was given an opportunity to just leave that institute and join them in a country I never thought I will ever be visiting. Right? China was not in my list. Like Japan was in the top, but China was not there. And no idea about Shenzhen, no idea about Hacks. Later, my friends told me that, bro, it's a good opportunity. So I had a really good friend circle, by the way. There, they told me that Hacks is one of the best in the hardware, and Shenzhen is like the Silicon Valley, but for the hardware. So you better go there. Dropped out a semester, went there. That was my first time working for a startup in a startup accelerator. Everybody was doing amazing work there, and that got me into that. Okay, na कीड़ा लग गया मेरे को कि I have to do a startup, right? And came back because I'm a good Indian kid. I had to complete my masters. Right?
Yeah,
पढ़ाई नहीं छोड़ सकते बीच में.
that is with every brown parent and the brown kid essentially.
Exactly, like बेटा कर लियो startup, but पढ़ाई पूरी कर ले पहले, है ना? तो finished my startup. Finished my masters, and after masters, Clean Robotics at that time was still in early stage. They could not guarantee me a salary for every single month. Right? So I told the guy that the founder was really good friend of mine. So I told him that I will work for you part time, but I cannot work for you full time because I have a loan to clear. Joined another company, and then eventually worked 2 years for that company and came back to India and started Mowito. But that Clean Robotics was that pivotal moment for me, which got me into startup part of that robotics. And CME was that pivotal moment which told me that there's more to robotics than just that Vibo robot from that Flubber movie. There's so many different kinds, right? And one very interesting thing which happened was that it was 2015 when I joined CME, Carnegie Mellon. And this was the time when Uber started its advanced technology center for
Yeah.
self-driving cars. So this was like that period in the industry that amazing stuff was happening. I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
the first self-driving car started in Pittsburgh, right? It started servicing the taxi part, right? The autonomous taxi. And CMU was also one of those places where they made the first autonomous cars. Right? They made it for Dapper Challenge and everything. So this was a good place to be, and this was a good time to be in, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is crazy, man. What a journey. And so how did the Swatch Fellowship come by? Like, what was that
Yeah.
about? What were the incentives for it, and how did it help you in your pivotal moments?
Yeah. So I got into that company called Clean Robotics. I was the first employee there and went to the accelerator, learned that hey, startups are one of the craziest place to be in, and you are paid to do something which you love, which which was very weird for me because I had this concept that bro, you are paid to do something and then you do what you love, right?
Yes.
Two different concepts. But suddenly somebody was paying me to create a robot and create a robot in a beautiful lab, right? And I was like, I need to do this startup. So when I came back to Carnegie Mellon, there was this Schwartz Entrepreneur Fellowship, and Jim Schwartz, who is the founder of Axel, is an alumni of Carnegie Mellon. So they started this fellowship. There was a graduate entrepreneurship club. There was a short center for entrepreneurship. They were uh, they were providing this fellowship. I joined them, and basically the whole fact that I had experience in clean robotics. I worked for a couple of startups before. That's what got me into that. I did not do any startup, but I worked for them, and that basically was able through that I was able to convince them that hey, I'm interested. I'm serious about entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
Got me into it. And there was not a lot of incentive. They just sponsored a trip to Silicon Valley. That's it. But what was the best? There was no financial incentive apart from that. But what was the best part about this was that I was getting into that club of entrepreneurs. I was
Hmm.
getting that attention of the most popular entrepreneur of Pittsburgh, which was Dave Mohini. Right, he was well connected. He pushed me to the edge that, bro, what are you doing? Pull your life together. There's so many startups around you. Work for them. There's so many people. Go out, network from them. Because Carnegie Mellon otherwise is a very, very demanding university. Like we think that Indian colleges are demanding. No, you go to Carnegie Mellon, you will not get a time to breathe. Right? Even if you're a grad student. Right.
And
There,
how
you
is
know,
that? Like, how is and how did you notice this crazy difference between Indian universities and the US universities? Like, in what terms is it super demanding versus here it is much more relaxed?
okay, so I will not comment about all the US universities, but I can definitely comment about Carnegie Mellon because I do
Yeah,
not know the culture of other
yeah,
universities. In US, they take plagiarism very, very seriously, right? That was the first thing which I noticed, right? So you cannot just copy the assignment, but they promote the collaboration aspect of it, right? Do the assignment in group, solve the problem in group, but write your own assignment in your own terms, write your own code. Algorithm could be figured out, right? So that was one big thing, and then most of the things were open-ended. So there will be assignment, 4 questions, normal, fifth question, open-ended. Read the paper, read the technical paper, implement it. Right? So a lot of them were very, very practical, unlike our undergrad assignments in the college in India. Right? So that was a demanding aspect of it. Right? There is a whole range that you can get 4 out of 4, or you can get 4.5 out of 4 as well.
yeah,
If you do extra work.
yeah.
So that was very interesting about the whole aspect of it. And then one very interesting thing was that you can do cross departmental courses. That means I was in the mechanical department, but all my courses were in the robotics because
Hmm,
to be honest, I was rejected by the robotics department. But I
hmm.
was so desperate that CMU ही जाना है because CMU was one of the best. I applied to 3 or 4 programs for CMU,
Yeah.
right? And I got into the mechanical part. And I was coincidentally rejected by every other university. So it could be fate, it could be destiny or whatever. But the only department which accepted me was Carnegie Mellon Mechanical Engineering.
Yeah.
Went there, did not do any course in the mechanical engineering, just did all the courses in the robotics, attended the lab in the robotics. And the guys who wrote the books of robotics were actually the guys who were teaching us. So right time, right place. But as I mentioned, all the assignments are open-ended. So we ended up reading a lot of technical papers, which were like the cutting edge research, and started implementing them one by one. And this was just to get the best out of all the courses.
Hmm.
To give you an idea, in my last semester, right, I did only 3 courses or 2 courses for which I got the credits. Then did 2 extra courses just by attending the classes, not for registering them. Because it
Wow.
was वो जो था ना कि कौन सा 3 इडियट्स में था कि बारिश हो रही नॉलेज की जस्ट क्लास में जाओ अटेंड कर लो तो वो
Yes.
थिंग एक्चुअली वहां पे है कि भाई इफ द गाय हु इज वर्ल्ड renowned in let's say localization algorithms you don't need to just do that course. Like maybe you're not allowed to do that course because your quota of credits is done. You cannot
Yeah.
register for more than 3 courses. But
Yeah.
nobody's stopping you to attend his class and talk to him and get his lectures. Right? You
That's
can't get these. Yeah, and MOOCs were not that common back then. Right? It got common now, but online courses are very, very few at that moment, especially from these guys. So I
yeah.
just went there, took the lectures, and nobody's asking for grades anyway. If somebody asks, do you know about the topic? I can still speak about it. Right?
Absolutely. So this is a very similar experience to what I had in the university. So I was in UIUC in 2014 for a
Mhm.
couple of months, and I realized that it is an open field, and I can actually go and learn any bloody thing. So I actually tried my hands from sustainable waste management to green buildings to nuclear physics to whatnot, and it was a wide spectrum. And all I could and I had different thoughts at that time. I realized that this whole credit system, right? It is built in such a way so that the generic average population at least does this basic minimum,
Yeah.
right? However, for the real learners, for the people who are really hungry about topics or insights or value, and or businessmen who are absolutely hungry for network, they would go the extra mile to take whatever they can in this whole pool, right? So that is exactly what I see is a very similar thing which you also did in your own journey.
Yeah. And honestly, like it's the first time I was seeing that lecture halls are full beyond the capacity. Like, I mean, people are sitting on the staircase inside the lecture hall. Some professors were that famous, right? And I'm like, undergrad with the kabhi nahi dekha. Like, classes are half empty, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because people are forced to take those lectures. Here, people are voluntarily coming to take those lectures. So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there were people from, I don't know, like civil engineering, physics department, who were coming to take the lecture of machine learning with you.
Wow.
And all the, like, CME is a university, so there are different colleges inside it. So they were not even a part of your college. Still, they were in the same classroom as you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I could not think of a better environment to do research or to do collaborative work.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So going a little forward in terms of your journey with robotics, right? And then these are mainly since we already it's well established that you are a industry leader in terms of robotics and you have understood the whole end-to-end journey of how this works. How do you envision the future of robotics, essentially? And in this realm of industrial automation, what do you think? Where are we going as a human race with respect to specifically industrial automation or in-home robotics as well? And I understand that in-home robotics is not your core focus area, but industrial robotics is. But so, how do you envision this in the next 10, 20 years?
It's a very, very broad question. But fundamentally, answer is robots will first replace the dumb task. The task which does not require a lot of decision making. Right? For example, if you go to a warehouse, a lot of people are doing very, very menial tasks, right? Which you see, if it was a software, you would have already automated it. But since it's a physical work, it's hard to automate that. Right? But it's very menial tasks, like counting the items in the carton, or picking 5 items there every time, right, from different cartons, right? These are like, dude, why are you even doing it? Like, but they're doing it for the money part, right? And if you go to all these dark stores of Swiggy, Zepto, and all of them, they're doing nothing. They just get to know what they have to pick in the mobile app, go around and pick it up. Right? Same goes in the factory. Factory means dumber, right? Factory, they're sitting on an assembly line and doing the stuff. Right? So I think one of the most critical things which will happen is removal of all these dumb tasks or repetitive tasks as quickly as possible, and making this all these humans do more decision making tasks. Right? For example, all the factory workers, if they're, I mean, down the line when all the factory workers will be replaced, these factory workers will need to be upskilled to do much more smarter tasks inside the factory. Or self-driving trucks, right? Self-driving trucks are basically replacing the drivers, because drivers should not be doing all the dumb task of driving on a highway. Right? Driving on a highway is the dumbest task. Driving in a city is still more complicated. Right? So they should be doing, figuring out fleet management for the trucks. That could be a next task for a truck driver. Right? How the logistics should work out, what should be transferred when, instead of just driving the truck. Right? So replacement of this dumb task is the first. When I say dumb, it means non-decision making. That's the first thing that will be replaced, and that should be replaced. Then comes the other aspects of it, the next level of it, tasks which nobody else wants to do. Right? For example, it's hard to find people for doing that. For example, in homes, the nursing part of it. Right? Getting a nurse for your grandparents to monitor them all the time, that's expensive. Right? India is still cheap. Outside, it's expensive, because literally you are getting a person who is qualified, who has a degree, to work for you 24/7.
Hmm.
Super hard, right? Now, those kind of that's where the home robotics part will come in, when you are actually replacing a people. So most of the robotics application for the next 10 years will be where you can immediately see economic value. Where will you immediately see economic value? Three things. Either you are doing a thing which a human can never do, right? For example, cleaning of the hazardous tank, oil tanks, nuclear plants, sewage, and all of that. Doing the things better than human, right? For example, painting of a car. Painting of a car, human can do it as well, but it will not be a uniform coat of paint of welding. Right? The quality of a robotic doing welding is much better than a human doing welding. The third is where you replace a human and you get immediate economic value. You can do it cheaper than a human, basically. Right? So these three are the immediate places where you get the economic value. Then, and even in a home scenario, if you're removing a home butler, right, or a nurse or something like that, then you're basically saving 40, $50,000 immediately, right? And if you're replacing that with a robot which costs you 10 or 20 or $30,000, right, that's cheap, right? Because that $40,000 is something which you will paying to one nurse. If you need two nurses, $80,000, and it's annual recurring cost. If you pay a robot $40,000 one time, or even $100,000 one time, that's a one-time cost. Right? You got to save money on that. Then comes the things like after 10 years, beyond 10 years, I think then it will be a little open-ended problem that, hey, things like social robots, right? Things which help you solve the loneliness and all of that.
Yeah.
Then those might come in, right? But till then, till we do not, for the next 10 years at least, I don't see any value in the things which are not adding, very, very obvious economic values. Like, सीधा सीधा बंदे को replace कर रहे हैं, सीधा
Yeah.
सीधा product की quality, directly they're improving the quality of the product,
Yeah.
or they're directly reducing the time or doing the things which a human cannot do at the moment.
Yeah.
Right? These are the main things, and obviously, in the industrial scenario, it is much more. In
Yeah.
a non-industrial scenario, it's hard to determine it, but things like hospitality is one of the most obvious things which can be replaced.
Yeah, makes sense. So essentially, what we're talking about is there are dumb tasks. A lot of humans are, a majority of the population of this world is engaged in dumb tasks, which are cognitively not that heavy. Human beings are at the pinnacle of intelligence right now, and in fact, we are creating more intelligence by creating AI. So why should we continue to do dumb tasks? Why not create machines which will essentially take over all these dumb tasks and elevate the human potential to the whole, let's say 90% of the world, to a tier two, let's say
Yes.
second level, right?
Yes.
Where people are forced to become cognitively better.
Exactly.
Right?
And one more thing, there has to be economic value attached to it. I mean, very, very obvious economic value. That means that if a person who is doing that dumb task is just, let's say, 10,000 rupees worth per month, right? You cannot replace, or basically 10,000 rupees comes out to 1.2 lakhs
Yeah.
per year, right? You
Yeah.
cannot replace him with a robot which costs you 10 lakhs.
Yeah.
You have to wait for the cost of that human to go
Yeah.
up by as much as 5 to 7 lakhs at least
Yeah.
before you replace him with a robot. So finally, it comes down to the economic value, which will be the one which will be deciding it.
Yeah. But if you look at just the trend lines, right, Puru, so the inflation continuously increases the labor cost.
Agree.
And economies of scale continuously decreases the cost for doing a mechanical dumb task. So there is a line of intersection where this polarity gets reversed. And essentially, machines become much more economically feasible, much more efficient, and much more faster, better, and stronger than traditional labor, right?
Exactly.
When it comes to so there is an ethical question of this, right? And everyone is scared that AI and robots will replace the human jobs, right? So my question, my thought process is always replacement, is it good or is it bad? Because after a certain point in life, change is very hard, right? And it goes back to the neuroplasticity that our minds become rigid, we don't learn new things, we think that 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years of our life, we've seen things the same way. Now, change is tough. As we see people above the age of 50, change is tough, right? And this whole new idea and concept that have a growth mindset is very rare in the elder generation specifically. How should we as a human race or president of the world combat this in the sense that we want the human race to go to the next level. We want efficiency. We want better things. We want cognitive load for the next generation. But still, as a consequence of this development, there will be a lot of pain and a lot of hardship in a large chunk of the population. And so, what do you think about this? How do we navigate this change?
Yeah. I'm surprised that people are thinking about it at the moment. I think this problem has been existed since the time of industrialization, right? Like it's like this whole, in one phrase, if I say, it's the problem of upskilling, right? A new technology comes in order to be relevant in this industry, you have to upskill yourself so that you
Yeah.
do the things which current technology cannot do. right?
Yeah.
Or you need to learn the current tools in the industry to get better than your peers, right? Because if
Yeah.
your peers are learning that better than you, then you're going behind in that race, right? So I
Yeah.
think this has been there since last 100 years. It's just, and I'm sure people have been talking about it 100 years. It's not a new problem, right?
Yeah.
For example, my dad is an accountant, right? When the SAP came into his department, his job was dramatically reduced. SAP is basically a software which automates a lot of things in the accounting, right? And fortunately, he was in NTPC, so I mean, NTPC has a very good HR policies, so he remained in his job. But if you're in the private sector, they will instantly replace you, right? So
Hmm.
you gotta be upskilled about it, and it's not just AI; it has been there since last few years. So I think the best way to do it is keep learning new tools, keep exploring new sectors of the job.
Yeah.
If you really want a safe job, go to a company which has a really you know pro employee policies. But if you want to earn a lot, if you want to be on the adventurous path, if you want to try out new things, or keep your job in a competitive environment, start upskilling. And when I say upskilling, start learning new tools. For example, if you're an engineer back from 1990s and you still want to retain
Yeah.
your job, you better know
Yeah.
programming, right? Especially if
Okay.
you're in companies like Amazon, network engineers and everyone, right? If you do not know them, if you do not know the engineering tools, then okay, uh, correct me if I'm wrong, right? This is something which I'm not very clear about. I think a safe option will be going to a that sector of that industry where you have to interact with the people a lot. For example, in the management, for example, in the HR side, right? There, I believe you are slightly protected from the changes in the
Hmm.
engineering aspects of the industry.
Hmm.
For example, new languages keep coming in programming. So if you are a programmer, you definitely have to learn new tools all the time. But if you are in the management side, right? If you are good with maths, if you're good with understanding the data, no matter how the technology changes, you will remain in that area, because management is more about managing people, understanding the customers,
Yeah.
understanding the finances, right? Balance sheet has not changed in the last 40 years, right? People who can
Yeah.
understand the balance sheet 40 years ago, who understand the business, are still relevant today, right? So I think that industry, that area of the work will remain protected, which is decision making based on the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the economics, right?
Yeah.
Understanding how to deal with people, negotiation, right?
Yeah.
That will remain in the industry. If your work is a lot about collecting the information, right? If your job is all about the information you already have at the moment, you know, then we know for sure that information which you are right now have in your head and which you are selling to people through which you are earning, that information down the line will be very very easily available, right? For example, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the information which a broker had, right? The broker used that information to sell the plots, right?
Yeah.
Now with new services coming up, that information which broker had is now democratized. Everybody has that information,
Yeah.
right? Things like that, right? If your job is because of that, because of the availability of information and availability of the knowledge, right? Then that job will become difficult to say, because more and more knowledge is getting dispersed. But if it is about talking to people, if it is about other soft skills, right, negotiation and everything, then
Yeah.
I think it will remain in the industry for a decently long time.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense. Essentially, hard skills, right, which are very machine replaceable. The maximum majority of those jobs will have to be upskilled, and irrespective of the age of the person, whether that's above 50, whether that's above 20, whatever, right? They have to accept the change. The governments or the institutions or the media essentially have to explain them this change, and take the relevant measures to upskill them to prevent pain, right?
Exactly.
However, for the people who are already in a very human-centric industry where machines are utilized for upgrading the efficiencies of humans, but majority of the business is done between human to human interaction, whether that's consultancy, caregiving, hospitality, XYZ,
Exactly.
right? Those will continue to stay resilient. That
They,
is
they will be there. Yeah. Yes. And
it's
yeah. Yes. Exactly that. So yeah, the availability of information is I believe is one of the main bottleneck, right?
yeah.
And countries like India are doing really good job in upskilling the at least the workers in a factory. So I'm from that industry, so I know about it. That there are institutes like ITI, right? Technical Training Institutes, TRTC, and all of them, right? There's a institute called NTTF, right? These are the institutes which do not give you a BTech degree. They actually teach you how to use the modern machines in the factories. And
Hmm.
trust me, I have a firmware engineer in my company who's not even a BTech. I think when he joined, he was 18-year-old, and I got to know he was a 18-year-old because he went to a bar and he could not order a drink. Like, क्यों भाई तेरी एज क्या है? उसने कहा 18। मैंने कहा तू इतना बच्चा, तूने बीटेक भी नहीं किया? नहीं. I was the one who recruited him. I did not know he did BTech because in the
Yeah,
interview he gave all the answers so perfectly that like I
yeah,
don't care whether he has a degree or not. That
yeah,
guy was from NTTF. NTTF is an institute which trains you in the electronics or programming a PLC or a Arduino, those kind of stuff. And they also do CAD, computer aided designing of mechanical and the other hardware aspects. Right? They don't give you a BTech degree; they give you a diploma, and that is good enough for
yeah,
these things. So I believe these institutes down the line will play more and more pivotal part in
yeah.
upskilling the people. You don't need a BTech degree to upskill yourself in CAD, right? Do other things. Again, this is not at the managerial level, this is at the very low level, but these are the things which will start playing role at the grassroots level, right?
Makes
And
sense.
if and to run a factory, right, and to be a manager in a factory, I'm waiting for that day when the person who is running the factory or running a warehouse
Yeah,
has no graduate degree, has a diploma.
yeah,
If we are able to reach that level,
yeah,
I believe our education system, our upskilling system
yeah.
would be at a good position at that point.
Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. That actually makes sense. Guru, I would love to show the video which you have recently posted online to our audience regarding Mowito's robot, right?
Okay.
So we'll spend the next couple of minutes talking about Mowito and
Okay.
how you're changing the landscape of industrial automation. So I'm
Definitely.
just going to share my screen. All right, it's visible.
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
Can I give a commentary on that? Yeah. So your audio is not audible, by the way. Here what we are doing is basically we're showing our skill or our software that hey, it can make the robotic arm pick all kinds of fruits and vegetables.
Hmm.
And that's because our industry right now, which we are focusing on, is the grocery warehouse, grocery supply chain to be exact, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's a warehouse or a dark store, if you
yeah,
get any vegetables, we can pick it up. Obviously, it is limited to the constraints of the robotic arm. If you are giving us a 5 kg pumpkin and the robotic arm can lift only 1 kg, it is physically not possible. But
yeah,
software can tell for any kind of robotic arm that hey, if you can grip it, then this is the point where you have to grip it. Right? This is like, for example, if you have a packet of dhania cylinder, right, and
yeah,
those are bind by a band, a broad band, right?
yeah,
Uh, you have to grip it not from the leaf, but from that band. A
yeah,
lot of times there are packets which are perforated, so you
yeah,
cannot grip it from that perforation part of it. Right?
yeah,
Then there are multiple kinds of suction cup which you can use. Sometimes same gripper can have 4 or 5 different sizes of suction cup. Each size of suction cup is for a different kinds of object. How
yeah,
will you look at the object and tell that hey, this is the suction cup which is right for it? And we are actually taking inspiration from a human, right? That as a human, you don't need to really know or have seen that vegetable beforehand to make guesses about it. If I give you a rotten tomato, and if you have never seen a rotten tomato before, or if I give you zucchini, right?
yeah,
Zucchini is a vegetable I saw for the first time in US. I had no idea that such a vegetable exists, right?
yeah,
But you can tell it, you can look at it and tell it that how heavy it could be, like which bracket it would be. You don't need to tell me the decimal value, but you can tell it probably 1.5 kg, right?
hmm,
And you can tell whether it's a rotten or fresh, right? You can tell it's most likely this looks like a watermelon, it's most likely hard, right?
hmm, hmm.
So these kind of things you can just tell by looking at it.
Yeah,
And this is the kind of intuition we are trying to build into the machine. Because
yeah,
when you are finally picking the vegetables in a distribution center or in a warehouse of Big Bazaar, Zepto, or Blinkit, and all of them, right? This kind of intuition comes by default in a human. You don't have to teach a human if it's rotten or not. You just tell a
yeah,
human to pick 5 best tomatoes from it. Right?
yeah,
And in fact, if you go to a grocer, right, and you want half kg of tomatoes, the grocer will put 450 grams, and for the last 50 grams, the grocer will look at it and see which tomato is most likely around 50 grams, right?
yeah,
They just not one by one put everything on the weighing scale. They just make a guess, pick it up, and put it there, and most of the time it is a right guess.
yeah,
So the shopkeeper, the grocer, looks at the image of the tomato and figures out, it is going in that tax weight bracket. And
yeah,
puts it. Right?
yeah,
We're trying to build that kind of intuition into the robot. Right? It's not very obvious for a robot, and you cannot hard code it. Right? You will hard code it for one kind of tomato at best. I need to make it work for all the kinds of vegetables in the world. Right?
yeah,
So that's the kind of thing which we are solving in technical terms, using our software. That hey, provided your robotic arm can pick it up, right? Provided your gripper can grip on that kind of surface, right? What information can you give about that vegetable, about the items you can see in that bin, that that will help us in picking it. right? Maybe for this gripper, what is the best point to grip? Maybe whether it's fresh shortened. Maybe what is the weight, right? So those kind of things.
Got it. So this is a multifaceted problem, to be very honest. Like as I understand, so you're saying there is a robotic arm, there is a gripper, there are loads of vegetables with different sizes, different textures, different gripping, and uh, the intelligence, the software inside the robot has to figure out which one is the right one to be dispatched at every
Exactly.
single instance, continuously non-stop 24/7. If that is
Exactly.
the use case, it must be very challenging, right? To figure all of this out before you could get something which is production ready, or before you could get something which can be deployed, right? Because there are so many variables here. How do you tackle this multivariate problem? Because what I can also understand is the vegetables or the stacks in different warehouses may not always be in front of you. They may be at different elevation levels. How does Mowito tackle this challenge, which is a multivariate problem?
Yeah, that's where I actually put my engineering hat on the side and I put my founder hat there. See, bro, don't overcomplicate the problem when it is not required. Let's focus on what the customer needs. Right?
Yeah.
Our customer at the moment, I mean, we technically can do all of that, right? But
Yeah.
let's focus on the MVP here. The customer needs that we are working with Dasu. So customer needs to pick the vegetable as soon as the order comes in. Vegetables, FMCG, consumer packaged goods, all kinds of stuff. Pack it together and give it to the delivery person, right? So how can we make sure that the problem is more tractable in the technical sense for the engineering department? So what we do is we separated out the whole system. There is one system which brings out the bin from the shelves. It's called a bin retrieval system. These kind of systems are very well known in the industry. Generally, in the larger warehouses, all the big companies like Grey Orange, Adverb, all of them, they make a system which takes a bin, a storage bin, a crate from the shelves, bring it out maybe on a conveyor belt, maybe on another robot, but they bring it out, right? What they do not have is a robotic arm which can pick out the item. So they still need a human to pick out the item from it. That is where Movito comes in. We are saying that, hey, we are putting a robotic arm which is static on a table, right? Just bring a bin to me and I will pick out the required item from it. Of course, it does not know what it needs to pick out. So a bin contains one single SKU, right? There will be a bin just of tomatoes. There will be a bin just of potatoes. There will be a bin just of cauliflower. Right?
Yeah.
But robotic arm, all the information which robotic arm is told is that whatever bin comes into you, pick 2 units of items from it, whatever it is. Because you can't expect. I mean, I'll get more in details later on, but generally, a lot of time it is not possible for somebody who's making the robotic arm software to get all the information from the warehouse management system. Sometimes people are just not. I mean, it's multiple teams working together, right? The
Yeah.
system which is bringing out the bin might not be our system, might be somebody else's system, right? There might be 3 or 4 companies involved for each and every system, and maybe the warehouse manager is not ready to give you the information about the order. So you don't have any information about who gave the order, what does the order contains, and all of that. All you know is bin has arrived, pick 2 items out of it. Right? So we do not have any knowledge beforehand. That is why we look at the item and then make the guess about how to best pick out 2 units from it. So bin, somebody else makes a machine to bring out the bin. We pick out 2 units of whatever it is in there and put it in another bin. That bin is then used for packaging. That bin is taken for packing things out. Now, how we are getting the bin based on different warehouses, it could be different techniques. If you go to Flipkart, they have a system called automatic storage and retrieval, which brings the bin out on a conveyor belt. There could be other kinds of system as well for bringing out the bins. It could be on a metallic conveyor belt. It could be on a other kinds of conveyor belt. It could be on a mobile robot itself, right, which is bringing out the bin. So two things change. But finally, we get a bin from which we have to pick out the item, and we do not know what item we might need to pick out next, and we have to do everything within 10 seconds, right? Because if we go beyond 10 seconds, a human can beat us in that, and if human can beat us in that, then we will need 2 robotic arms to replace one human, and that screws up the whole economy, right? Right now we are competing on. Right now we are struggling with the economics of one robot against one human, right? Because a human could be very cheap. A human could be around 2.5 lakhs in India, right? Then you have to you have to use if you have to use 2 robotic arms, then it further makes the problem hard, right? So that's the finally the problem, right?
Yeah.
Whatever is in the bin, pick out 2 items. That's how we are simplifying it,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That makes sense. So, as a matter
And,
of fact, if yeah,
and we have to do it faster. That's it. If we take the physical movement of the whole item can
yeah,
take 8 to 9 seconds. So you have to
yeah,
make sure all the processing which you're doing in the computer
yeah,
that takes less than half a second.
And also, not only so, what I realize is this kind of automation systems, right, will be very tough to get implemented in low-income economies because and high population economies. This will be much more readily accepted in warehouses where the humans are less, where industrial automation is being adopted much faster because the cost of labor is so high. Hence, what I see is Europe or US, and as you rightly said, Dublin. That's why you're there because your customers are there. That makes much more sense in terms of break-even cost or
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So in India, the cases are very limited. That's why in India we are focusing on the dark store because here the unit economics allows us to automate it. Right?
Yeah.
If you're going into a warehouse which works only 1 or 2 shift and only works 5 days, then it doesn't make sense. Right? In dark store, most of the dark stores run 24/7. Right? You might be able to place an order only till 2 a.m., but the dark store is operating 24/7 because remaining 4 hours or 6 hours are being used for inverting process, for restocking processes. Right? So the dark store is actually working 24/7, and those are the best places to do it. Because one interesting thing about dark store, Chirag, is that unlike larger warehouses where you have to pick a particular order, where you have to fulfill an order in 6 hours, because right now you will pick it, ship rocket guy or whoever is the delivery person, they will come with their truck in the evening, and then you have to load that truck. Right?
Yeah.
In dark store, you have to fulfill an order within 3 minutes because
Yeah.
remaining 7 to 8 minutes will be used for the delivery. Right? The more the time you take to fulfill an order, the lesser the time the delivery guy has to deliver the order. Right?
Wow.
So you cannot, in large warehouses, you batch the orders. 40, 50 orders, you batch it together and you pick them together. Like you will go around with a shopping cart around the warehouse. You have the list of 50 items ordered by 50 different people, and you pick all of them one by one. So you optimize the path. Right? You
Yeah.
start from one end of the warehouse, you finish at the other end. Right?
Yeah.
Picking for 50 orders in 1 hour, let's say.
Yeah.
Here, as soon as the order arrives, you have to pick it up. You don't have to. You cannot wait for 50 orders to arrive and pick for 50 orders together. If you're getting 3 orders in 1 minute, for every order there will be one person to pick out that order,
Yeah.
and that is why the economics really screws up here. Right?
Hmm.
That is where our use case becomes important. That dark store is the place where the cost of processing an order is so high that it makes it viable to put a robot there. If you go to a Shiprocket or large Flipkart kind of warehouse, the cost of processing an order is so low that there, if you have to put automation, you cannot compare it with a human labor. In India, you cannot compare it with a human labor. You might be able to sell it because you are saving real estate, but you cannot sell it because you are saving in the manpower cost. Right? So if you go to any large warehouse and their automation companies like AdWeb and all of them, they're selling bin retrieval systems. Right? They are saying that hey, in the same space, now you can use in the same footprint, you can use the complete vertical space of whatever 30, 40 feet they have because of our automation solution. Right? That's what they do. They say that your storage density has become very high because of our automation solution. They do not say that hey, we're going to save you in manpower cost because that doesn't make
Oh,
sense.
okay.
Because their operation is 1 or 2 shift 5 days a week. Doesn't make sense for them. They are batching the orders, right?
Yeah.
And real estate savings really helps because now they can fulfill more orders. They can store more inventory without making the effort of buying another warehouse, buying another piece of land, right? They can now expand with the same piece of land further. That's how automatic storage retrieval systems actually make a sale in India, real estate savings.
Yeah.
In dark stores, we are selling by saving the manpower cost, and that is only and only possible in dark stores. Other places, if you, no matter how expensive your merchandise is, for example, if you go into the jewelry space, there also the cost of labor is so cheap that it becomes a little hard to sell it. Right?
Yeah.
Although they have all the money, right? They are
Yeah.
selling jewelry, right? They have a lot of margin,
Yeah.
but still it's hard to sell that in India. So that is why in India, dark store is the case. In US, Europe, everywhere else is the case.
Yeah. 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 So that technically the TAM, total addressable market where you can sell to your users, become much bigger in US, Europe.
Yes. And interestingly, the way we calculate TAM is the number of people involved in the warehousing space. So we don't say that, hey, e-commerce is that big, right? We are not saying
Yeah.
that e-commerce is $1 billion market. Doesn't matter to us, right? No matter what you sell. Tell me
Yeah.
how many people are there, how many people I can replace. What is your manpower cost?
Yeah, yeah. And as soon as the market changes, you go to real estate, right? I will increase your XYZ density and do the real estate is savings where the manpower cost is already very less. But the real estate technically is you. So this is actually an inversely proportional equation because where the real estate cost is really high, the amount of people are also very much. In the sense that in denser cities, right,
Yeah.
you see more people, more demand for real estate, so real estate prices skyrocket. So that is why you see that's one reason why you see value proposition shifting towards real estate. Whereas where the population is low and scarce, the manpower cost is high because of scarcity.
That is true. That is true. There's one more point added to it. Even if a large warehouse in India is on the outskirts, right, where
Yeah,
real estate is still cheap, right?
yeah,
There also, if let's say you are a warehousing company, you do fulfillment for 10 different e-commerce companies, right?
yeah,
Now you have to expand. Getting a new warehouse, building a new warehouse is a hassle. If I give
yeah,
you an option that, hey, you can expand with your existing land if you use my automation solution, it becomes a very good proposition to them,
yeah. Makes sense.
right? So, for example, if you go, I will not bring out the names. If you go to the popular warehousing companies in India, you will
Yeah,
see they're not actually using the whole vertical space because there a human is going out to pick the item. A human at best can pick out the item from 8 feet using a step stool. They cannot pick item from 30, 40 feet.
yes.
So that there all the vertical space is empty. Like you can fly a drone out there.
Yeah, yeah, technically, if the bylaws allow. But the Puru, very interestingly, since these giants, right, Amazon and all these guys, they're also investing heavily in industrial automation and specifically warehouse automation. And Amazon, as a player, has it's been seen that this guy, they create parallel businesses to support their main e-commerce business, and they spin it off as independent horizontal businesses like AWS or tomorrow, let's say, a warehousing solution company. How do you guys plan to combat this or differentiate, or how do you even see that as a threat or not? Like, what do you think about how should a guy in robotics, which is specifically focusing on warehouse and industrial automation, think about the larger threats?
That's a good question. So Amazon only spent out the AWS. Fortunately, they have not spent out their robotics part. Maybe because that's giving them a very, very good edge over the competitors that their order fulfillment cost is very, very low. Right? And what historically, so they have a very good robotics team. I have my friends working with Amazon Robotics, right? And it's not just Amazon Robotics. It's like they have 4 or 5, 10 different companies doing different kinds of robotics, right? There's a whole different company which is doing taking part of the robotics, right? So they have a very good department, and but what ends up happening is they end up acquiring a lot of companies rather than building of their own. They are really good in acquiring and then making it better, but generally from scratch they don't do much, right? Uh, and I think you will understand it better than I do, right? Like it's typical startup thing, right? What if Google comes and compete with you? It's basically because companies like Google and Amazon, they're not as agile as they can be. Like Amazon is actually one of the most agile large companies.
Yeah,
Still, creating something from outright scratch is still difficult, right? And we
yeah,
are the companies which can move fast, right? Because we work day and night because it's our not job at a line, it's our livelihood at a line. That if we don't work day and night, our company will close. There's
yeah.
employees are not working day and night to do that.
Yeah. So
But
essentially, you will outcompete, and people who are building new startups generally tend to outcompete these incumbents
that's
who are also agile now, just on the number of hours being put.
numbers of hours being put, and see, I will not comment on that, right? Honestly, because it's hard to defend a company when I have myself not worked in the corporate sector. What I
Yeah,
can defend on is the data, right? The
yeah,
data says that Amazon and all the large companies historically have preferred to acquire startups or the companies who are building this cutting edge technology rather than doing it outright from scratch.
yeah.
And my hypothesis is it's most likely because of the number of hours, because of the passion of the startup people who are working on it. If
Yeah,
given enough time, if given enough people, even a
yeah.
large company can do it. Right? But we are doing it faster than them. We are talking to the
Absolutely.
customers faster. We are building a technology. We are iterating it much faster. That's
Yeah.
my hypothesis.
And also, what I realized was that so in my journey of building a couple of startups, is I always go back to that episode of Office. I don't know if you've seen that show or not, where Steve Carell is sitting in front of the customer and he says, "You call the competitor right now. If they pick up the call, I will come to your house even on a holiday and solve it for you." So customer support,
Yes,
essentially, right? The feeling to give the customer the feeling that I will stand by you to support your requirements day in, day out, night, holidays, whenever you want. That is what differentiates me from any other guy you go to. Is also a very big factor in terms of small companies because they are so agile and so different. They don't have to go through multiple process or chain of commands to do the right thing, which gets
exactly.
usually lost.
Every employee has that kind of ownership in a startup
Exactly.
that they will go out of their way to get the customer what they want. And
Yeah.
a lot of time, and for a large company, the problem which a startup is solving from far above, it will look very small problem. Right?
Yeah.
They might not be even interested to create a whole department to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually, when the startup starts solving that problem and starts growing, that's when the large company notices.
Yeah. Makes sense. So in general for Mowito, Puru, what are the next big milestones that you think you guys are chasing for, or markets that you guys are planning to tap, or products that are planning to create?
Yeah, so we are focusing on automating dark stores at the moment. The idea is that dark stores is one area which is underserved. Dark store is the area where not a lot of automation are available, and the reason for that is the robotic picking part. There are solutions available for material handling, for moving the bins out of the shelves and bring it to you. There are solutions available for them. It's a mature market. The reason a dark stores cannot be automated is you just do not. I mean, moving the material is not enough. You actually have to do the picking part as well to do the end-to-end automation. Because if you go to a dark store in US, for example, they have two people per shift to fulfill the order. And if you just create a system which brings out the bin for you, you still need one human to take out the item. You're not saving a lot. You still need one or two human to do the picking, right? So the existing automation solutions have not worked out for the dark store, and this is where we come in. We use the existing bin movement systems, add our robotic arm to it. When I say robotic arm, buy a robotic arm, put our software on the top of it, and automate the dark system end to end. Therefore, we are in that position where we have the technology which nobody else has to automate the dark stores from end to end, and we want to exploit that position. Right? We want to take advantage of that. Therefore, we are going with dark stores at the moment. First India, and then US, and eventually to a larger warehouse. Right? Larger warehouse, we will have a larger competition, no doubt. There are very, very big companies who are in that space.
Yeah.
But after deploying in 100 dark stores in India, 100 dark stores in US, I mean, we will have 150 to 200 deployments all over the world, which is a very large number.
Yeah.
And at that time, our technology will get mature enough that we can take these big competitions head on.
Yeah.
We can go to larger warehouse and we say that, hey, we are not deployed in larger warehouse, but we have deployed 200 robotic arms and they're working flawlessly day and night. So therefore, we have that much of data, we have that much of experience in the deployment, which you probably do not have till now.
Yeah.
And dark stores are really good in that sense that you have one product which you can deploy in 100 other dark stores of the same company. For example, let's say if we work with any of the dark store company in India, Zepto, Blinkit, or Swiggy, right? All of them have what 200, 300 at least warehouses or dark stores. We deploy in one of the dark stores. We prove our metrics, right? So we will get live in December. Once we prove that, hey, we are maintaining your SLAs, we are maintaining the metrics you really care for. Next 99 or 200 dark stores are open for us. We just need to replicate it like a product in all the other dark stores. Dark stores are very tiny, 2,500 square feet. So there's not a lot of variation. You can go from one dark store to the other. SOPs are fixed. So all these companies have their very well-defined SOPs which they follow in each and every dark store. Picking SA only to SA only. Right? You don't change it from one dark store to the other. Items change. SOPs, processes remain exactly same. You make product for one dark store, you have 100, 200 dark stores open for you for the next set of deployment. Sales cycle, you do it only once. Right? Integration, you do it only once. Right? Deployment, you do it 200 times, of course. But you just have that rapidness in the scale. You replicate that in the US as well. So, by the way, Zepto, Swiggy, and Blinkit are actually very good companies and they are reputed all over the world. If you go to US and talk to all the companies in quick commerce and tell them that, hey, you have gone to their warehouse, you have a solution working for them, they'll listen to you. Because the number of orders the Indian quick commerce companies are processing per day is very high than anybody else in the Western Hemisphere. Right? In the US, you will processing 200 orders, 300 orders a day at the peak. In India, at the peak, you process 2,000 orders a day. A good basket. So that's, if you can handle that, you can definitely handle the American warehouse, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's 10x better the efficiency and the speed.
Exactly. Right. And of course, if you can make the economics work in India, that means you are cheap enough. Right? I mean, your solution is affordable enough. Let's not call it cheap. Affordable enough. Then American dark stores will definitely find it much more affordable.
And these kind of robotic solutions, Puru, do they usually go on subscription pricing or licensing pricing or direct sale plus software of the whole hardware? What is usually seen as the upcoming trend?
It depends on the industry. Robots are nothing but machine at the end of the day. Right? Factories, manufacturing houses, they generally prefer buying it outright. If you have to sell a subscription to them, you have to be in that position that you have a leverage that you can make your customer do the subscription you want, right? Otherwise, even if you're selling a software, manufacturing houses will prefer a capex. That's their preferred way of doing the business. In e-commerce, it's totally opposite. Even if you have to sell them a crate, a bin, they will prefer it on subscription, right? I mean, that's the eye-opening thing for me. There's a company called Leap, LEAP. They give pallets, the wooden pallets on which cartons are kept, bins, the crates on subscription. I was like, why? They are just like $200, man, buy it out. But no, they
Wow.
do everything on subscription. And I think the reason for that is e-commerce work on a very thin margin, and they want to reduce the amount of capex they have to do, and they should be able to scale up, scale down fast enough. Therefore, the preferred way of doing business there for us selling the robot as well is doing subscription. And for us also, in order to work with subscription, we tend to lease the hardware.
Yeah.
We don't buy it outright, right? For the demonstration, obviously, we will have our own robot. But for
Yeah.
deployment, we will be leasing out the hardware. We will take. This is a good part of it, that all the hardware is already available in the industry. We're not
Yeah.
making anything
Yeah.
of our own. So we go to a leasing company. We say we need these components. Go purchase them and lease it out to us.
Yeah.
Then whatever subscription we get from our customer, a part of it goes to the lease rate.
Yeah. Got it.
So that's how. This is not our preferred way. This is the preferred way of the industry. We work according to our customers. Right.
Makes sense. Makes sense. That's a very deep insight, man. In terms of the difference in thinking between e-commerce players versus traditional CapEx players who like to keep things as their
So
own ownership model versus sharing model, right?
yes, yes, and this is the hurdle which a lot of robotics hardware companies are facing in the e-commerce sector. That I mean, very few robotics dealers actually provide robotic arm on RAS on a subscription.
Yeah.
So that is why we have to get a leasing company in the middle of it who will actually
Yeah.
do the capex and lease it out to us.
Got it.
Because traditionally all the robotics hardware has been made for factories, and factories prefer capex.
Yeah. 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 I understand. So, as an industry leader, Puru, what are some of the books or resources or podcasts that have really influenced your thinking in this direction, which have really worked good for you and which you would recommend to everyone? And I'm an avid book reader, man. So I would love to help them.
Yeah. Actually, you have given me a couple of good books. I can't remember, but you also recommended me that. I think Mom Test was one thing.
Oh,
Uh,
Mock Test. Yes,
yeah,
it's a
Mom
fantastic
Test
book.
was one thing, and Lean Startup. I think it was by somebody called Eric.
Eric Rice. Eric
Yeah.
Rice. Yes.
I also follow this guy called Stephen Blank. So see, I mean, finally, the rules of the game haven't changed. You make something which the customer needs. Right? The only thing which makes it difficult is that in order for the customer to visualize your product, you actually have to make an MVP. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there you end up doing a capex, which
Yeah.
makes it difficult in the hardware side.
Yeah.
That you cannot just like it happens a lot in the software, right? That you make a facade of the app and
Yeah.
then you give it to the customer. The way the customer behaves, you start making the code behind it. You
Yeah.
can't make
Yeah.
a facade of the hardware, unfortunately,
Yeah.
especially for the
Yeah.
robot.
Yeah.
Even to get the customer feedback, you have to make something. And
Yeah.
a lot of components in the robotic space are very expensive. The robotic arm costs anywhere between 16 to 30 lakhs.
Wow.
So actually a hurdle in doing any startup in the robotic space, especially in India, where the the VC mindset at the moment is get a customer contract before, or get a customer LOI, or get a. I think LOI is not as important today as it was 10 years ago. They are all the if you want to get investment, you gotta have a contract. Right? Otherwise, it will be very hard for you to raise funding. And to get a contract, you need to get an MVP. To get an MVP, you need funds.
Yeah.
So that it becomes hard to crack that the circle here.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think you have to talk to a lot of customers so that you get one customer who can take a leap of faith and can vouch for you in front of other people who are ready to fund you and make the MVP. So I think Stephen Blank really helps there to tell you that, hey, talk to customer, talk to customer, talk to customer, right? And other people who have been, I mean, podcasts have been really helpful in this sense. I think there's a good company called Robot Report, the Robot Report. I forgot the name. I think it's also by Steve Crow. Uh, I read about them a lot because they're talking only and only about robotic startups, and they show what is the trend going on. And for example, what is the model this particular company is using? What is the model that particular company is using? Right? And they also have podcasts. So that's one of the really interesting, I would say, newsletter which I follow.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, and on a personal note, Guru, how do you unwind, man? This world of robotics and AI is very fast paced, right? It's like 10,000 things happening every single day, every week. Uh, how do you manage it all?
I just follow the right set of people on Twitter and all of those social media.
Yeah.
As in, like, when I say right set of people, the people who are actually sharing the latest research which is going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one thing I realized is that, I mean, in robotics, the research is definitely fast-paced, and anything
Yeah.
which happens in the AI finally ends up affecting robotics as well. So keeping the researchers in touch, right? That is a very key aspect of it because all my engineers
Yeah.
definitely are passionate about robotics, but they're not researchers, right? And they
Yeah.
cannot keep reading technical papers every time they come out. We don't have
Yeah.
that kind of liberty because we're a small team. They have to be like, do only those things which you can implement within the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
If you're experimenting with new things and like you will experiment for one more month and it might not work out, then
Yeah.
keep it as at a low priority, right?
Yeah.
Because our priority is making an MVP, right?
Yeah.
So what I do is I took the advisors who or friends to be exact, whom I talk to every other week. Right?
Okay.
It includes professors from New York University, my friends who worked in other robotic arm companies, right, and current students. Right? I keep talking to them. I follow them on social media as well, so they keep on putting their research out there
Yeah. Yeah.
on the social media. And then I read that research,
Hmm.
right? And that keeps me up to date with the current things. And I also get a lot of anxiety. For example, new research has been published, which looks like much better than what we are doing. And then I call to my advisor, Little Pinto, who's right now a professor. Bro, should I just implement that? To solve this problem, should I just implement the transformers, which right now is in the research? And like, bro, if your code is running, if your code is not breaking, if you're able to solve all the problems which you have at the moment with your current working model, don't shift to a new model. It's research. Everything works great in research, but when it comes to deployment, things starts breaking. So if you have 3 or 5 people, whatever you have in your team, don't ask them to try out absolutely new things. If it is working, make it more and more robust until you get a very, very strong reason to shift. Do not shift, right? Because right now you are a small team. Focus very, very sharply on delivering the value rather
Yeah.
than trying out absolutely new technology out of the research. So that keeps my anxiety on check, right? And keeping in contact with these people helps me, you know what actually is a very, very solid work and very, very flaky research work. For
Uh,
example, I'll tell you one very interesting example. Reinforcement learning has been, before this transformer came into the picture, reinforcement learning, inverse reinforcement learning has been all of our rage.
can you,
Uh,
Puru, before you go into that, can you explain what reinforcement learning is for our audience so they clearly understand the context?
yeah, so reinforcement learning is basically learning like a human that you do something right and the algorithm rewards you. So
Yeah.
you try out different steps, you try out different things to achieve a goal, right? And if and then you have something else which evaluates your action, and based on that, it rewards you. For
Yeah.
example, if you move in the right direction, it will give you 5 points. If you go
Yeah.
in the wrong direction, it will give you negative points, right?
Yeah.
Based on that, you eventually learn a set of you say state versus action map. That if you're in this state, this action will give you the most points or rewards. If you're in this state, it will give you another set of rewards. This is called a policy. So you get
Yeah.
a mapping of, hey, I'm in this state. This action gives the most reward. This state, this action will give you the most reward. State could be your location in the world. Action could be move forward, move left, move right, and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And based on that, when you learn that policy, that mapping, and when you actually have to execute it, then you execute based on that policy, right?
Hmm.
In a hope that it will eventually maximize your reward. So the learning is get a mapping of state versus action that maximizes your reward. That is reinforcement learning at the end of the day. That's the policy.
Hmm.
And this is the output of that reinforcement learning, that mapping. And then when you actually have to use it, you use that mapping to state versus action kind of thing. It mimics what in reality you do, right?
Yeah.
You are in a state, or you believe you are in a state, and based on your learning, you figure out that, hey, if I move forward, most likely I will be closer to my goal. And
Correct.
a lot of things are up in the air there, right? You believe you are in that state, but actually it could be in any other state as well, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of things are here, hit and trial, and finally it's all probabilities, right? That
Yeah.
there's a good chance that what you believe is wrong.
Hmm.
Keeping that in mind, use this action.
Yeah.
So those kind of uncertainties keep lying there, but this is more or less reinforcement learning. This is how we actually also work in the real world, right?
Yeah.
We believe where we are and we take action based on that. Think about what you will do if you are in a room with no lights.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So this is what reinforcement learning is, and this has been used in self-driving cars to understand or to make decisions, right? And I do not know what exactly all the algorithms everybody is using, right? But from what I understand by talking to more and more researchers, is that currently nobody is using reinforcement learning in deployments. Everybody is using it in research; it is doing great, but nobody is using it in deployment. So be careful if you are trying to build a product around it, right? Because a lot of people have tried and were not able to get to a reliable solution, right? So those kind of things is something which makes me anxious, and that should I'm lagging behind by not using the latest tech, and that's when all my friends in research and in industry helps me out. That, bro, you're not lagging behind. Don't waste your time in that algorithm. Focus on something which has been proven to work.
Yeah.
Modify it for your use case and go about it. Right? Because you're a startup. You're not a We were not
Yeah,
running a lab,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. So it
And now,
almost, yeah,
yeah, and now people have been talking about these vision transformers.
yeah,
Transformers have been a rage now, right? And it has been coming up since 2020. And Google recently released a paper on robot transformers, which basically modifies vision transformers to be used with robots. So they look at the image, and that transformer tells what action should be taken. That move robotic arm 5 centimeter forward, left 5 centimeter left, right, and all of that, right? And it's similar technology which ChatGPT, for example, uses. Similar, not exactly same, but it has been derived from the same stuff. And became anxious as usual that hey, should I try out this stuff or not? But I've been told, or my friends advised me who have been doing all this research, that wait for a while, wait for a couple of years, let it mature, and then work on it. Right? Because if your system breaks, no researcher will come to rescue you. You have to deal with your customer yourself.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, and in fact, all these researches and code bases are these open source when it comes to vision transformers or reinforcement learning models, right?
A lot of them are open source. A lot of them are open source, and they are open source because they are coming out of research lab. Google is actually doing a good job in that, honestly. Google, whatever the research they did, they open source a lot of it. Facebook also did the same. Right? OpenAI is the only company who has been doing everything closed source, but Google robotic research, a lot of them is open source.
It is
And I'm
quite
not going to,
contradictory. Why, whereas they were called OpenAI, but they're closed AI.
yeah, yeah,
Microsoft's
that's
investment, the whole ethos has changed.
yeah, yeah. And all the code which is coming out of Carnegie Mellon and other research institutes
Yeah,
is also open source. So it's
exactly.
definitely worth trying it out. But before building a product on the top of it, before deploying it, test it enough, I would say.
Yeah,
And don't promise a product just because based on that. I think if you're promising a product, use the technology which has been running and being deployed since the last 5 years.
yeah. And so, just as a closing thoughts, Guru, if someone wants to get involved or invest in Mowito, what are the best steps for them to reach out to you, and how do they get in touch?
If they want to invest in Mowito, just DM me on LinkedIn or email me. I would love to get in touch. Uh, and yeah, so we are raising around right now. We are raising a seed now, and would love to talk to them definitely. So we are raising around to deploy with our first customer, which I can reveal to them in the private conversation. But we're deploying with them in December, and we need to deploy 100 more in the next 2 years, right? 100 more dark stores in India. So that's a pretty big, LOI and pilot agreement. Therefore, we are again we are not putting our own money there because every deployment takes around 50 to 60 lakhs. We can't we can't put our own money there. There's another partner who is putting in the hardware, but we still need to get a team to support all those deployments. And for getting that team, we are raising around. And
Got it.
for that basically bring creating the team. I need one. That's what.
Makes
We
sense.
are.
Are you also hiring actively if people want to get involved in terms of helping you out?
No, we are not hiring at the moment. We are keeping the team very, very lean at the moment. Primarily because of, the constraint in the fund, right? We are trying to increase the runway as much as possible, so we are keeping it lean. But see, if you want to work, if you really want to work, then just ping me, right? We can figure out a way to work. But we are not actively hiring because just to keep the team lean. I think this was the advice which I've been getting a lot, right? The market is bad, Puru. Don't expand. Just get the maximum out of what you have right now.
Yeah.
So if you have a team of 7 people, keep it 7. Downsize it if you can, and get the maximum value out of your customers from that.
Yeah, got it, got it. Okay, perfect. This has been quite a journey, Puru, and kudos to you, man. We discussed very, very deep topics in terms of robotics and how this world is going to change and how you're going to be at the forefront of that. So kudos to that, and I
Thanks, man.
wish you all the best in this journey. And I hope Mowito expands across the globe so fast that Amazon and the other incumbents are not even able to blink an eye.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
This has been great, Puru. Thank you so much for the podcast, bro.
Thank you. Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye.